Γεια σας αγαπημένοι μου και καλώς ήρθατε στην εκπομπή. Είμαι η Άντζελα Τίκη και σήμερα είμαι πάρα πολύ χαρούμενη διότι θα μιλήσουμε για αυτή την νέα είσοδο του Ποσειδώνα στον ΚΡΙΟ, αλλά μαζί μου θα είναι ένας αγαπημένος φίλος και ένας πάρα πολύ καταξιωμένος διεθνός αστρολόγος. Maurice, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yasu, thank you so much for the invitation.
I know you can understand Greek, right?
A little
A
bit,
little
yeah.
bit, yeah. So you have a very rich bio. You have developed a worldwide network as an author, of course, as a teacher, consultant, conference organizer. You are a certified evolutionary astrologer. You are Kundalini yoga teacher, also OPA certified as professional practitioner. And you have served for 12 years for three terms, like for OPA also, and in 2022, you have received the Orion Astrology Award for outstanding contribution to astrology and the ESAR Community Service Award. So very rich and wonderful what you're doing for our community.
Thank you so much. It's the fire and the flame of astrology.
I know. So here you are because I consider you the master of Neptune. And this is the book, which is the Bible for Neptune. This is yours. Like Neptune, the 12th house, and Pisces. I think it's a book that everybody should have if one wants to understand what Neptune is all about and all the energy that has, and the sign of Pisces also, and the 12th house.
Thank you so much.
So you're the best person to explain to us or gives us an idea for this energy that changes, and we are expecting Neptune to enter into the sign of Aries, along with a solar eclipse in Aries. It's going to be a short one during this next month, but next year is going to come for good.
Indeed, the date for Neptune ingress into Aries is March 30th. And like you said, it happens the day after a solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries.
It's intense.
And it's not uncommon for when you have a slow moving planet to move into a new sign when the sun is close by. So when Neptune moves into Aries, the sun is either in Pisces or Aries. And when Jupiter moves into Cancer later in June, the sun will be late Gemini. So the planet always moves to a new sign. I mean, there are some factors to consider when it retrogrades back, but generally, the first time it moves into a new sign, it's with the sun.
Exactly.
And we pay attention to the day also that the planet move conjuncts the sun, because as it starts a new cycle, for Neptune, it's 14 years. And because it's the first sign of the zodiac, it's also 165 years for the whole zodiac. So the planet meets the sun. It's the same way that when a soldier goes on a mission, they meet with the king first to get the orders or the encouragement or the intentions.
Excellent way to see it and to look at it.
So Neptune was conjunct the sun when it was at 29 Pisces on March 19. So for some people, this may have been an interesting day where they could see some of those intentions.
You know how many people during those days were like I don't have any energy. I don't know what's going on. I feel very tired. I feel very out my body. Yeah.
Well, I think there's so much energy that happens inside. We're going through a lot. The world is going through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of insecurity, and that drains you.
And it's
That
like a
that
shock. Like, yeah,
yeah.
this shifting energy, it's like a shock to everybody. Feeling you don't know. It's, I think the word or the feeling that you get is that I want, but I don't know what, how, what's going to happen in the future, where are we going, or something like this. But everybody has this urge for a change. They want it, but at the same time, they are afraid.
And it's very much, I believe, part of this Neptune energy, because the 0 degree of the zodiac is a new birth of some sort. And yet it doesn't have form yet. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of feeling, energy, but we don't see the results yet.
Yes.
And it's like you're planting many seeds, but you don't see what's coming above the surface yet. It's only going to take a few months or a few years or, for the cycle to really begin until we start to really know where we're going. So for now, there are many, many different process of elimination and process of planting, and it's like a twilight zone.
Exactly. And I have a question because really, I think, like me, I am representing questions of people, but I have the same feeling as well. It's easy to understand a transit when it's, in the middle and then at the end, especially when it's over, when it's about the transpersonal planets, right? Because something higher than us. So you do understand what
Yeah.
it was about, in global events especially. But what about individually? And I mean, Neptune especially, this is my experience, and I suppose a lot of people, like Uranus, it's like shocking yet, but it's very authentic, and you're doing things through Uranus that you want to go further. You do it. With Pluto, yeah, it's very intense, and it's fear and all these things. It's heavy, but at the end, you find your power and you change a lot. But when it comes to Neptune, because it's something very spiritual, very letting go, it's not easy to understand what actually wants to tell you in a personal
Yeah.
level. Yeah.
Well, in a simple way, Uranus works on the mind, the higher mind.
Yeah.
So that's why it's quick, and that's why it wants to bring new, something new. Pluto works on the emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why it's often painful, because you have to go through the shadow with Pluto. If you look at a tree, Uranus is about the tree going up and up and up to the sun, and Pluto is about the roots going down and down and deep. And if you have Uranus without Pluto, you have a tree that goes up and doesn't have deep roots, and so it can
Yeah.
fall with the wind. And if you have only Pluto, but you don't have Uranus, then you're going deep and you don't see the sun, and you're just struggling
Yeah. Let's go up.
to gain perspective. What is Neptune? In a simple way, if Uranus is the mind, Pluto is the emotion, Neptune is the spirit. And what this often means, because it's an abstract term, it begins with the changes that are not always in your control.
Mhm.
So where Pluto, you can feel the pain, but if you fight, if you work hard, if you do your therapy, you can reclaim your power. And the same with Uranus, it's up to you. But with Neptune, a lot of things is about the changes that occur that you have to accept, that is not in your control. It's part of a larger dynamic. Whatever Whenever Neptune moves into a new sign and it stays there 14 years, it usually changes the balance of power. And the reason is because Neptune is spirit, it represents the collective consciousness.
And traumas.
Trauma, all of them can
Mhm.
cause trauma. I mean, Uranus can cause trauma and Mars can cause trauma, but each one has a different trauma.
Oh, yeah, but with the Neptune, does it come out and painful soul, like your
What
spirit?
what
Yeah.
what you can happen, what can happen with Neptune is, like I said, there's something of a higher order. So it's beyond ego. You will see, we will talk about
Yeah, of
Neptune
course.
and Saturn, right? The
Because,
conjunction.
yeah, the truth is, I wanted to ask you, can we see separately this Neptune in Aries without taking into consideration the fact that it's going to meet Saturn next February in
I mean,
2026?
we
Can
can
we?
use that, we can use that as an example. I mean, the conjunction will be 2 years, but Neptune will stay in Aries 14 years. So we need to separate them
Okay.
because there's going to be a time where Neptune will be on its own.
Yeah.
But when we speak about a balance, redistribution of power and not being in control, you will see that many leaders who have, for example, I'm using that as an example to give you a
Yeah.
feeling that when Neptune opposes their Saturn, or when there is a Saturn Neptune challenging aspect in their natal chart by transit, they are often exposed in a scandal, something very, a weakness.
A weakness.
What happened with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky scandal was Neptune in Aquarius was opposing his Saturn.
Saturn.
And there's a long list of leaders who lost their power when that aspect occurs. And so you understand with Neptune that they lost control. They thought, I'm the president, nothing's going to happen to me.
Yes.
And that's when the trouble begins. Now,
The arrogance also of Neptune, that sometimes we see it in inner personality as well when it's strong. The Neptune is strong. You see, like not arrogance. How can I say it? There is a mega feeling,
megalomania.
yeah, megalomaniac mega feeling for about the identity.
And there's there's that, and you also see very strong, leaders need a strong Neptune and a strong 12th house.
I
We
totally
think,
agree with you. I totally agree.
yeah,
Yes,
people look at the 10th
I know.
house, but it's not there.
Yeah.
So the reason is it's only through the 12th house and Neptune that you can reach the public. But that also means that Neptune represents the power of the public
Mhm.
because it represents the collective. So if we look back in time and look at previous Neptune transits, let's go back to Neptune in Capricorn in the 80s and early 90s. That was the time where the Soviet Union collapsed. That was the time when the apartheid regime in South Africa collapsed. And so you had this, and it happened very quickly.
Quickly, exactly.
You know, the structure Capricorn
Apart.
dissolved.
Yeah. Has fallen apart like this. Click, click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing that happened, and that's something that the Greeks did not like at all, was that they started to ban smoking in public places with Neptune in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
So Neptune has to do with the public, and Capricorn is rules and order. And so suddenly you had this discipline of no, you can't smoke wherever you want. And of course, then Neptune moved into Aquarius, and you had the whole social media explosion and smartphones, and you could see everybody, the public, became a photographer.
Yes.
And you know, everybody's now a photographer, and they became very
A social
independent.
person, yeah.
But also everyone now had a laptop, had a computer, things that did not exist in the 80s. You know, it began with Neptune, Uranus together, that people had their private computers. And it became public that Aquarius technology was accessible to the masses.
Yeah.
Now, when it happened in Pisces, you know, on a very, again, one of the expression was that cannabis became
Legal.
legalized.
Yeah.
So that's a very Neptune in Pisces, but it's not the main thing. To me, what happened in, you know, in the Pisces, because Pisces represents the victim, the underdog, the ones who are invisible, not, you know, the big egos, but those who blend in. What happened is that you had movements, at least in the United States, and I believe, you know, in Europe, you also
Yes, we
felt
all
it.
always, yes, follow
But
and yeah.
that was when victims finally had a voice. For example, the Me Too movement.
Exactly. We had it here as well during this
So
period,
when
yeah.
in usually, you know, the big leaders, the Hollywood producers who have the power can silence everybody and the victim is invisible. Nobody knows. Suddenly, you had victims who could speak, who could take down the biggest Hollywood producer
Which is
with
also
nothing.
Neptunian. Hollywood is all, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly, exactly. And you also had the whole movement in the United States of Black Lives Matter,
Matter, yes.
where you had police brutality. And again, those in power were suddenly powerless. So it reversed the balance of power to give a voice to those who are usually invisible.
Mhm.
And then Trump came in and he didn't like that. And so he went after all the symbols of Neptune in Pisces, diversity
It's true.
and you know, helping those who are underprivileged, all the social programs he's eliminating, as well as going after US Aid, which is a global American organization that is humanitarian.
I know, I know.
So that's a Neptune in Pisces organization. And he just tried to dismantle it. So there's a reaction at the end of the transit. You can have a reaction to what the transit was bringing. But in another way, we can say, you know, things are things ever going to go back? I don't know. We'll see.
Is it time for heroes? Like now that we are in Aries, is it time for heroes, for people, because Neptune always has this injustice, always feeling like you want to help the victimization, you're the savior, you want to be in front of those people, who do not have a voice. So it's this kind of, I have a Mars Neptune, so yeah, I do get it. And I want to help those who are, we don't have the power to do it.
Voiceless.
Yes, the voiceless. But now for all the trauma that I was talking about earlier, and I asked you that we do have, and we have seen it, realized it. So are we going around now with Neptune in Aries? So it's red also. Are we going to seek for a person who's a hero, or go around this person and unite, because we have so much fire and air that's coming in the following years, so it's going to be active. Yeah. So do you think that we are going to search for new kinds of leaders, or leadership is going to change, and also our leadership in our personal life, like what kind of leaders
Sure.
we are?
I mean, I will say a few things. You will see with Neptune in Aries the extreme of, because Aries has to do with independence and has to do with sovereignty, which means, having the freedom to be yourself, to be, an astrologer, to be an entrepreneur, to be an artist. So that call for freedom is very strong with Aries planets. Don't tell me who to be. Don't tell me what to
What to
do.
do? I know that.
But with Neptune, it can go to the place where people lose their independence. There is some kind of crisis, and you see people becoming invisible again. But then the reaction is revolution, revolt. And so quite often during Neptune in Aries times, there is liberation movements. People fighting for freedom. And we know it happened, 165 years ago in the United States with the Civil War and the freedom of the slaves. So the slaves lost their identity, right? They did not have any autonomy. And with Neptune in Aries, suddenly there was a movement of independence.
Yes.
And I believe the same will happen now with any population that feels oppressed, that feels disenfranchised, that feels that it doesn't have its identity. It will claim its identity. And we can think about all the different, political fires now, especially with the Palestinians and with, the Kurds and Ukrainian.
Yeah.
You are going to have that fire of needing, like we say, Neptune upsets the balance of power, and it will give people the need to find their own
Yeah, for
liberation.
themselves, for themselves. If you allow me, I've told you that earlier. I try to see like the conjunctions of Neptune and Saturn in Aries through history, the history that we know. And the closest I found to this 0 degree was in 594 before Common Era. And this was in the 2nd degree of Aries. And this was the time when we were talking about revolting, like, for my rights. It was back then in ancient Athens, when if you owe money to somebody, they could turn you into their slave so that you will repay. And, the Athenians were very angry because they were also losing their land, their independence, their body, their existence. And so they asked for, it was a poet and a legislation, to write, new laws, Solon. And so he wrote the well-known Sisachthia, which is taking out the burden. This is what it is, exactly the word, no burdens.
Hmm.
And to please both sides, but never again that we didn't have again enslaving for debts. So it was finished. But people, they were angry. And through history, if we go through this, Aries, Neptune, we'll see again for taxes a lot,
Hmm.
and things that have to do with money. And I revolt. I am fighting back for that. Not all of them were successful, but at least there
Yeah.
was something from the people that were either very poor or in the lower social levels.
Yeah, to reclaim their power,
Exactly.
basically. And it's interesting, again, going back one cycle, in the United States, there is an organization called the NRA, which is translating to National Rifle Organization Association.
Okay.
And this association lobbies for everyone, simple citizens, to own a gun.
Oh yeah.
And and the reason is that if the government becomes a dictatorial or, oppressive, people will have an individual ability to defend themselves. And
Okay.
there's a lot of controversy because people, abuse it and there's no regulation and crazy people own guns.
Okay, I know.
But but this organization was created during Neptune in Aries.
So do you think
So
that now with
I
with
think
yeah.
so. But to just show that Aries has to do with defense,
Yes.
and instead of having the government telling you, I'm going to defend you, with Neptune in Aries, everyone was responsible for their own defense. You had, again, a reversal of power. Instead of having a centralized army, you had individual sovereignty, in this case with defense, which, at its core is a nice idea. It's very difficult to keep it under
Look, I
balance.
know. I know. I know. You're right about it.
So Saturn, will enter Aries around the same time, in May, I believe.
Yeah, the end of May.
And so both of them are at 0 degrees Aries, but they will come very close, half a degree away from each other in July. So you have Saturn, Neptune pretty much in conjunction already this year. And then they both retrograde and come back together on February 26,
It's not
24,
over till
26.
it's over. The end of the year is gonna be, it's not over till it's over because all of the planets, go back to
Yeah.
finish the unfinished work. Yep.
And when Saturn meets with Neptune, it's a very interesting and challenging time because Saturn is everything that is safe, everything that is strong, everything that we rely on. It's the teachers, the structure, the banks, the gold standard, the people, even our parents, that we thought were the heroes, were the leaders. And Neptune is the water that eats the rock.
Okay.
So over time, Neptune wins. So when they come together, usually you have the rock
Yeah.
disintegrating. And that's when you can have situations where Saturn loses control. And so it can be a time where there's no law, where there's no strong leadership. Leaders are weak. Leaders fall apart. And the system becomes very like a um
Even the
yeah,
system itself dissolves. I mean, seeing the
like the
system is
Soviet
not,
Union.
yeah, it's not working. It's not working anymore. It's, yeah. You see in the
But
past, it's like an,
exactly. But what can be surprising is that you thought, oh my God, this building was so strong all the time. And then you see, like in one day, boom, the building collapses. And of course, it creates this feeling that maybe if it was a bad building, you're happy, but it gives that feeling that, wow, the Berlin Wall fell, right, during a Neptune-Saturn
Saturn, I
conjunction.
know. Okay, on this, because maybe you can give us a clue of how you see it. Like from one cycle of Saturn Neptune, when the Berlin Wall collapsed, in the meantime, they should have done some work to, to really unite the country. And then we come like months before the conjunction, like in the meeting again of these two planets. And you see in the election during Germany that the results are like the same country, the way it was, divided, like Eastern and Western Germany. And you say, what happened? I mean, after so many years, here we go again and be on the same place, or is it a reminder, or like not a apocalypse, like understanding
Yeah,
the leaders to understand, we haven't done anything,
yeah.
and this is what is happening that we hadn't seen it, earlier.
I mean, you're absolutely right that we're learning the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, we need it's like advertisement. For a consumer to buy a product, they need to see the advertisement at least 9 times.
Yeah.
So the same thing with life. You know, sometimes we need 9 crises to learn one
Yeah.
lesson. But you know, if we look specifically at what happened in Germany, go back to the previous Neptune Saturn square. So that was in 2016,
16.
15, 16, when Neptune was in Pisces, Saturn in Sagittarius.
Sagittarius.
And you had this massive migration of Syrian refugees coming to Greece, coming to Europe by the ocean, by the sea, right? Neptune in
Yeah, of
Pisces.
course. That was the opening.
And what you had is, again, Saturn, Neptune, the boundaries, the borders dissolved. And people were flooding in a very Neptunian way. And Saturn was not there. There was no control. And so it's a time where now is a reaction
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm.
the immigration and to the fact that there wasn't enough regulation to challenge that. And you may ask, what to do, throw people back to the sea? You know, that is also a Saturn Neptune question, is that sometimes you're not in control, that things happen and you may try to do the Saturn thing, but it doesn't work. And you have to trust what the ocean brings, which is in this case, new immigrants. So we go through these phases with Saturn, Neptune, where people, you know, the countries change, the borders are changing. And in our own lives, the jobs that we thought were secure are not secure anymore. And, the teachers that we thought were the best suddenly are accused of, some
Yeah.
kind of a bad thing. And you see, oh my God, it's a quicksand. There's no left and right, there's no center. Everything is like a twilight zone.
Yeah.
And yet, at some point, it comes back. Saturn solidifies again.
Yes. Yeah. I remember my square. So I'm not very, I'm welcome Neptune in Aries as in Aries, but okay. Okay. It's not what I'm
Well,
looking for, but
we have a whole Pluto in Libra generation who will also have Saturn and Neptune opposing that Pluto.
yes, I know. You're right.
So this is the ingress chart. So when Neptune now on March 30th moves into Aries. And as we said, the sun is close by and the moon just moved away from the eclipse. But what you notice, as an evolutionary astrologer, I pay a lot of attention to the nodal axis. And the nodal axis is in Virgo, Pisces now, which has to do both with employment, jobs, and losing, your job and finding new uh, work opportunities. And it also has to do with health and global health. So when we look at the nodes, we have to look at the rulers. The south node is in Virgo, so the ruler is Mercury, and the north node is in Pisces, so the ruler is Neptune, the modern ruler. And we see that the rulers are conjunct. Not only that, but the day before, they switch signs. If you look, I can't change it here, but if you look at the chart for March 29, Neptune is 29 Pisces and Mercury is 0 Aries. So they just flip on that 0 degrees.
Yeah, which is amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
Yes.
And
It's not easy to
the
see that. It's rare.
it's rare and it's happening this weekend. And because they are the rulers of the nodes. So usually when the rulers of the nodes are together, there are very important decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Something is being established or decided. So whatever happens this weekend, not only because of the eclipse, not only because of Neptune, but because of this Mercury-Neptune dance on the 0 degree, will possibly have impact on the economy, commerce, on work and employment, and on relationships.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing is that the other ruler of Pisces, Jupiter, is moving forward in Gemini, and it will square the whole thing. And Jupiter in Gemini has to do with education, and it has to do with migration, international movement, people changing countries and whatnot. And so it's going to be interesting to see, we talked about Germany and immigration. We know what's going on in the United States with deportations. So I believe that's going to be a time of big crisis with who is allowed in, who is not, cooperation between international parties.
Actually, when Jupiter enters Cancer, that's in the beginning of June, we're going to have the third. It's coming with Jupiter and Saturn final square. Remember, we also had um, I was invited to you when we were talking
Opa.
about this aspect. No, your channel.
Oh,
You were
okay.
invited for your channel. We were talking about the Jupiter Saturn, but also we are going to have a Jupiter Neptune. So yeah, it's what you're saying makes sense, total sense. Like
When you have so many planets on cardinal degrees. Jupiter, 0 Cancer, Neptune, 0 Aries, Saturn, 0 Aries. It's a new identity. So, like you said, new leaders, new systems. And it can be economic, it can be political, it can be healthcare because the nodes are in Virgo, Pisces. We can anticipate people also in their own life saying, oh, I don't want to be working in the bank anymore. I want to be an artist, or,
Yeah.
changing identities. I'm going to share this chart again. This is the chart for the solstice, the Cancer solstice. So when the sun is 0 Cancer, it will be with Jupiter at early Cancer, a square the Saturn Neptune. And so you have this very strong cardinal energy. And you can even, move a couple of days forward to the new moon in Cancer.
Yes.
So all this 0-degree cardinal means we are tired of what we were doing. We need something fresh. We are reinventing ourselves. So people will decide to move to another country. They will buy another house. There's going to be a lot of selling and buying, a lot of job transitions. And wherever these planets are in your chart, that's where the change is. If it's in your relationships, houses, there can be a change with the job of your partner or with your own relationships.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes,
an interesting year.
yeah, and intense. And you have a lot of other videos and articles in your website that people
Yeah, of
can
course.
visit. Yeah.
This is the website, mauricefernandez.com. And you have a 20% off on everything because it's a new website. And you can go to videos and see a lot of material here on both cycles and whatnot. And study material. And I also invite you to, this is a Facebook group, Evolutionary Skies, where there's a lot of discussions on astrology. If you're interested in just learning, it's free. You join and we play
I also
astrology together.
encourage people to be part of this group because, yeah, we are writing a lot in these discussions. Oh, Maurice, that was very huge what we talked about. We talked more
A
than
lot,
we
a lot.
learned, but you have this rich mind and knowledge, and you have so much to say to people and offer, and we are always learning from you. That's why people love you a lot. So I will invite you again. I like what we did. And I want to really thank you for accepting my invitation, for talking about this Neptune in Aries new placement and what it may bring. And so love you very much. And we'll talk again soon.
And God bless the Aries.
Well, thank you.
You are going to lead the way for the next 14 years.
Okay.
So find an Aries next to you and keep your Aries friends close by.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maurice.